The first question is from Miss Patricia Maguire from London.
Yes.
The question is, are people born good or evil? Please explain what is meant by the self that incites to evil when talking about the natural states of man.
What?
Are people born good or evil?
Good. That is the answer.
When talking about the natural states of man, please explain what is meant by the self that incites to evil.
You see, man is born good because he is born in the character of God. According to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, it is their parents or the environment which make a child good or bad. But he is given a good start in life, because had the start been bad, then he could not be held responsible for anything evil which he does. So this is the philosophy of reward and punishment. If a child, like we believe every child is born good, begins to deviate from the character on which he is born, largely it is the parents who are responsible, or the environments, or other circumstances. But if he succumbs to those pressures, then he'll be answerable. If he does not, then he will be rewarded. And the reward is always much greater than the punishment of evil. This is the principle as mentioned in the Holy Quran. Right?
This question is from Mr. Danny Posova from Crystal Palace. His question is genetic engineering good for food consumption? Are there any side effects?
I believe it is bad for human consumption, because what we know of the food and its values, since we have inherited the normal food and the values attached to it, good points and bad points, for thousands of years, we have already assessed the bad effects of continuous eating of bad food and good effects of food from human experience of the past. But the genetic engineer is far too new. It's like a newborn baby. We don't know what effects it will produce later on. Already I have many examples in my mind whereby, to begin with, a scientific experiment was lauded by the scientists as excellent and very good. But within the next 2 or 3 generations, the same scientists who lauded it decried it and said it is an evil thing, and they started withdrawing such medicines which are artificially created. So the basic to both is artificial creation, synthesis through chemical or physical knowledge, and you know where to strike off one atom and add another. This science creates new material of which we have no experience. That is what I mean. Genetic engineering is no different from this. And I should, I'm not that I'm going to go for genetic engineering, but I should advise people who go to do it with a pinch of salt. Thank you.
This question is from Mr. Ronald Anderson from Worcester Park. With the advent of the nuclear bomb in the Asian subcontinent, the danger to the ancient cultures and traditions of the inhabitants of the subcontinent is apparent. However, must we look further east in the Asian continent for the real threat?
Further east? How far east?
Far east.
Pardon?
Far east.
Why not look westwards? Instead of looking into the east and going into the far east, the evil generation of nuclear bombs of all sorts are done in the West primarily. Whatever you find in Pakistan or India or other countries of the world, they are just trying to steal their secrets, which they try to guard. And nobody knows whether they really try to guard it or release the secrets to benefit from the outcome of these things. So this is a very complicated issue. But nuclear explosion must remind you of the Western technology of achieving the know-how and the capability to build such atomic or nuclear bombs as can destroy the whole world 100 times over. Now this is not taken note of. The plea is that the third world countries are irresponsible. We are responsible, so we will not let atomic proliferation take place because we know the consequences and we will stand guard over it. This is a fallacious argument. As I discussed the matter in Germany last time, and all the knowledgeable scientists present agreed with me that it's only matter of situation whereby Germany can also decide to go for nuclear armament. And so is the case with Japan. Japan and Germany both are capable of producing nuclear weapons to a size which is going to dazzle the eyes of the West. They know it. They have prepared everything, but they do not let it come to the surface. So atomic threat is not posed by a bomb or two of India and Pakistan. They know it's just meaningless. If ever a threat is caused, it is caused to these countries themselves. And the threat is to their economy, not to the Western economies. In fact, the West will benefit from this explosion to a very large degree. And they will stop supply of things by the direct route. And by an indirect route, they will continue to supply all the things which are forbidden at a much higher cost. So the whole situation is very misleading to a casual observer. If you know what's happening in the world today and how the Western countries manage to make benefit out of every situation, then you know what I'm talking about. What happened in the Gulf crisis, the same thing. What happened in all other crises. Every time they said no more weapons to Iraq. What actually happened was they continued to provide Iraq with all that weaponry, but at a cost which was much higher than the normal cost, with the result that they damaged the economy of Iraq even further. So you are playing in the hands of powerful people, such powerful people who can afford to reject morality if they like. So I hope that answer should suffice your question.
This question is from Mr. Safdar Mahmood. He's from Law School, Kingston University.
Yes.
His question is, what is the factual evidence with regard to the belief that Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was the promised Messiah as predicted by the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and others?
What argument would satisfy him? That is the point. there are so many arguments in favor of his claim being true. But it all depends on what he's thinking about. For instance, I can quote just one hadith, which is a hadith apparently, but it is based on Quranic truth. It is based on Quranic truth and also on the truth of biblical prophecies. I'm talking of the events which have been predicted when the sun will cease to give light and the moon will join the sun in this process. Now, what does it mean? According to the tradition of the Holy Prophet, it means that eclipse of the sun and eclipse of the moon both will take place together in 1 month. And with that interpretation, which had to be divinely guided, he predicted that this prophecy will get fulfilled only at the time of the right Imam Mahdi, the one who will represent him. Because the words which he uses are Inna le mahdiyana ayatayn lam tukuna mundu khalqi samawati wal ard. For our Mahdi, there are two signs which never appeared as signs for anyone else. Now these two signs, as mentioned by him, are that the moon will get eclipsed on the, let me say, the middle of the moon's eclipse, and the sun will get eclipsed at the end of the month.
The first night of the moon.
What?
The first night of the moon and the first of the three.
I know,
Middle
okay.
days.
And middle day of the sun. Now, Imam Sahib reminds me that all the 3 nights of moon's eclipse are not mentioned, but the first night of the moon's eclipse is mentioned. And also the middle day of sun's eclipse is mentioned. Now, anybody knows that the eclipse dates of the moon are only 3 dates: 13th, 14th, and 15th. So 13th has to be the first one. And also, all people who are familiar with the subject know that again for the sun there are only 3 days of eclipse: 27th, 28th, and 29th. And 28th is the middle of the 3 days. Now, when Hazrat Mirza Sahib claimed to be that Mahdi, whose advent was predicted by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, up till that time there was no sign of any eclipse. He claimed to be the Mahdi when he founded the Ahmadiyya Jamaat in 1889. There was no sign of any eclipse. And nowadays, the science has advanced to be able to predict somewhat in future regarding the eclipses. But still, the scientists admit their defeat. They cannot clearly predict any eclipse, either of the sun or the moon, within next 2-3 years. There are many other factors which are variable, and it's not possible for even the scientists of today to predict this. Now, when Hazrat Mirza Sahib claimed to be that Imam Mahdi, who was the Imam Mahdi of Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the mullahs began demanding from him to produce the sign of the eclipse. The papers were all full of this. They said, all right, if you are Imam Mahdi, show us the sign which has to appear from the heaven. It happened in 1894. Almost 5 years after his claim to Madhaviyat. It was impossible scientifically to predict that. But there are other factors which are involved which make the situation even more complex. All people who know the phenomenon of eclipses know that eclipses can take place in one horizon or another, but it's very difficult for both eclipses, that of moon and the sun, to be visible from the same horizon. Because it's possible the sun may eclipse in Pakistan, moon may eclipse in Bangladesh, for instance, anywhere. But this hadith told us that such eclipses would be visible from the same vantage point. Otherwise, it could not be quoted as a proof. Now, what happened in 1894, the moon got eclipsed on the 13th and the sun got eclipsed on the 28th, which is the middle of the sun's eclipse. And this happened on a wide horizon, beginning from Mecca to Qadian. It covered both. Now this is also amazing because some scientists whom I employed to work it out, they submitted their report that this is very rare, that both the moon and the sun should be observed to have eclipsed from the same horizon, spreading as far as from Mecca or Medina to Qadian. But this is exactly what happened. So this is a sign which any unprejudiced person should bow to, should accept. But only if you are bent upon refusing the truth of the Imam Mahdi, then it's your choice, you can do whatever you like. But this prophecy, which should be remembered, is not only the sign of the truth of the Mahdi, but also, in the first place, it is a sign of the truth of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. How on earth he could produce such a prophecy 1400 years ago? Unbelievable. So those who hate Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, at least they claim to love Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and God has bracketed these two in a manner that if you really love Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you should not reject any prophecy which is a tribute to his truth and the greatness of his prophecies. So I think for the time being this should be sufficient, right?
This question from Mr. Mushtaq Malik from Hayes. This question was referred to him by a Christian missionary, Reverend Zahir Pargari. The question is the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, mentioned in the Bible and Torah? Could Hazur kindly explain?
Yes, the Holy Prophet is definitely mentioned in the Old Testament and the New Testament. It is a mention which everybody knows. In the first place, in the Old Testament, it was prophesied that God would raise from among you, your people, Moses, a prophet who would be like a brother unto you. But he would be raised from among your brothers. Now we know very well that Abraham had two progenies, one beginning from Isaac and the other beginning from Ishmael. So when this prophecy refers to the brothers of Moses, it evidently means that the Nabuwwah, the prophethood, would be transferred from this progeny to the other one. And from among your brothers, it says, God will raise that great prophet which is promised. Not only this, there are other references also, which for the sake of brevity I leave for the time being. Now I come to the New Testament. In the New Testament, it was very clearly predicted that Muhammadim will be raised, and he will be the future prophet. Now the word Muhammadim was kept unchanged in the scriptures for a very long time because it didn't hurt them. But when the Muslims claimed that Muhammadim is a clear name for Prophet Muhammad, why do you reject this prophecy? The answer is now, not the previous answer. The answer now is that it has to be some mistake, because Muhammad is a proper noun, and proper nouns cannot be pluralized. So Muhammadim, although it is written, but it has to be wrong. By the mistake of some scribe, it was written as Muhammadim, but it does not refer to Prophet Muhammad, because that his name is a proper noun, and the proper nouns are never pluralized. Now this is a lame attempt to bypass the issue. It is a hard fact which can be proved from the other usages of the Bible that proper nouns are always pluralized as a sign of respect. When you want to respect someone, his proper noun is mentioned in plural. So this Muhammadim refers to the greatest of all prophets. It had to be pluralized. The best among those who are praiseworthy. This is the meaning. So also the word Ahmad is mentioned in the New Testament, and nobody can gainsay this, nobody can deny this fact, that the word Ahmad was found in the older scripts exactly as it is, A-H-M-E-T. And now they somehow cover it and they have attempted to remove it altogether from the text. Why? Because Ahmad is another version of the name Ahmad. Because T and D are mutually changeable. So when you say Ahmad, it means Ahmad. And this is exactly what the Holy Quran tells us, that do they not read the word Ahmad written in their testament? It is that Ahmad who has come. But when he came, then you rejected him. So this happens, this is an old story of a miserable attitude towards the people of God. As long as they do not come, you believe in the interpretation of those prophecies equally well. Like Muslims, like Christians, they all interpreted the same prophecy in the same way. فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ, according to the Quran, when he actually came, قَالُوا هَذَا سِحْرٌ مُبِينٌ. They say it's a magic. You can't believe in it. So that is how people find a way to reject the prophecies when they come to be fulfilled. Was it your question? Someone raised that hand. Thank you.
A question from Mr. David Thomas of Birmingham.
Yes, please.
Yeah. How was Jesus conceived?
How was Jesus conceived? Can you tell me how all animals prior to the creation of male and female were conceived? Can you tell me?
fertilization.
Animal life passed through a phase when the male and female were not yet divided. Every mother was a female mother, yet it conceived without any male participating in the process of birth. So Allah is wise and Allah is all-knowing. If He so decides, He can create someone according to some hidden laws of nature, which do not remain hidden when we study the past. But among humans, they remain hidden because of many factors. It's not necessary that Mary was the only lady who gave birth to a child while she was not yet married. There are many evidences from all over the world, now gleaned by the scientists, which show that human mothers can give birth to babies despite any man touching them. So it's not a very vital question which you have raised. You must admit that there are many factors of the world which we do not know clearly, but scientifically we can prove the possibility. So whatever happened in the case of Mary, Allah knows best. It was a miracle because at that time all these secrets of science were not known. And the secrets of science, if they were known, it was not possible to particularly apply them to a certain lady. So later events told us that God caused the miraculous birth of Jesus Christ from Mary despite a positive knowledge of us that she had not permitted any man to touch her. So it is possible. And if not possible, what is the alternative? We do reject Jesus Christ as someone born of illicit relationship? If you are a Christian, you will never think of it. So already you believe that God can create out of nothing. Already you believe that at least in the case of Mary, it was not creation of a child out of nothing. There was some mechanism already provided to Mary which could be activated by God. So this question is not at all any difficult question for you to ponder. Right? Thank you.
This question is from Dr. Boz Aida. Does Hazur think that there is such a thing as predestination of individuals? If so, is this fair?
In a manner of speaking, yes. Because we cannot choose the circumstances of our birth. So every child who is born to a parent inherits the environments willy-nilly, which is not his choice at all. A child is born into a bad family, evil family. A child is born among poor, poverty-stricken people, and also the contrary is true. So if you think deeply over these things, you begin to discern the hand of destiny in that. But that destiny does not mean that such people are not responsible for their acts. Some people may be given a very poor and bad start. But according to the Quranic law, God decides the fate of such people in accordance with their own personal participation in things. A man is born in a wicked family. Very likely he will grow up as a wicked person.
But if he begins to move away from the evil traditions of the family, even bit by bit, that person will be taken care of by God and he will be rewarded. So the issue of the destiny is a very complicated issue where you have to believe in a predestined birth of a person because his birth is not of his choice. But when it comes to his treatment by God, then there is no complication at all. Humans do not know the circumstances in which a person acts, but Allah knows. So He has a keen eye on the behavior of every person born anywhere. And as such, he will either be rewarded or punished for whatever he chooses to do. Right?
Chaudhry Rashid Ahmad from Manchester has asked this question. He has said that the sunnah of the practice of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was to have a full beard. Then what is the justification for half beard?
You see, the fact is that according to Islamic injunctions, some injunctions are secondary in their nature. Some are primary. Those injunctions which have been mentioned in the Holy Quran as do's and do nots, they are taken to occupy a very important position in such injunctions. They can be styled as farais. And also, when the Holy Prophet enjoins upon anybody to do something, and he mentions that if you do not do it, you will be punished by God, then this is called wajibat. Then there are injunctions in which you have choices. As far as the beard is concerned, although the best beard is that which was grown by the Holy Prophet of Islam, yet nowhere will you read in the Quran that beard is essential. Nowhere will you read in any tradition of the Holy Prophet that keep full beard or you will be punished. So people of a later age who become superficial in their understanding of religion begin to overemphasize these superficial sides. Well, beard is good, but if it is grown out of love for the Holy Prophet, then automatically this will cover the whole face with the passage of time. You know, I have experienced it myself. I began growing the beard despite my personal, not abhorrence, but personal choice. At that age, when I'm talking about, I was young, I didn't like to grow a beard. But I did it, I put a little beard here, only because of the love of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Allah knew best that this beard was not grown out of showing people that I am a pious person or so. Allah knew that I had given a start to my beard entirely out of love for the Holy Prophet ﷺ. And I stand witness to this, that this beard began to spread out until it has become what you see. Again, you should remember this, that the beard the Holy Prophet speaks of, which he himself demonstrated, was a sign of beauty and charm. The beard of the Holy Prophet is mentioned in a hadith as something unspeakable in its beauty and its glory and its light. Now some people of today, the mullahs, when they grow beard, it's not because of their love for the Holy Prophet. It is because of their trend to follow formalities. and they show off by following these formalities to indicate that they are the greatest people. And nobody dares say anything against a mullah with full bearded face. The result is that their beard becomes a source of horror, not a source of love. Look at the faces of the mullahs whose pictures are published in Daily Jang, and you will stand witness to what I am saying. Their beards are so horrible. Those who may have entertained the wish to grow a beard, after seeing these pictures, he would say, "My tawbah. Never again will I entertain this." That was not the case of the beard grown by the Holy Prophet of Islam. So these are different factors which should be considered. And the last but not least, these secondary issues should not be overemphasized beyond their real position which they hold. Beard is good, but not necessary. So even those who shave their faces, I always advise them not to do it, but I never tell them that they have committed a crime for which they will be punished. They are two different things. I am trying to impress upon Ahmadis to start growing beards, because I know they will do it for the sake of the Holy Prophet, and as such they will present the right model of beards. But otherwise, it's a fact that to grow beard is not that essential as would be punished if you do not grow it. Who is the questioner? Who asked the question? Right, thank you.
This question is from Miss Maria, who is a Spanish student staying in Wimbledon. Why do women pray in a separate hall rather than in one hall?
I'm glad they do. Because women, with all their charms and attraction, if they share the same hall of prayer, the attention of men would be not drawn to God but to them. And this is what we observe in the churches. Women, when they go to churches, they always make up and wear the best of their dresses and so on and so forth. So when I observe any service of the church, I always take notice of this fact, that men are more interested in the women sitting next to them rather than to God, before whose presence they appear. See, it's human psyche. It cannot be avoided. According to human psyche, if you give chance of short-circuiting to human forces, they will always short-circuit. So to avoid this short-circuiting, Islam does not promote women and men to share the same hall during prayers. Thank you.
Question again from the ladies, Miss Anna Jarmolinska from Poland. Could Huzur
I
please...
think most of the girls sitting over there are either Spanish or Polish or belonging to other nationalities. Is it right? Most of you belong to different nationalities. But do you understand English? You do. And what about them? They do not respond to my question, which means they do not understand English. So somebody will have to translate the video cassette and give them as a gift, so they should also understand what was passing on here. Please.
Could Huzur please shed some light on the issue of consumption of gelatin?
You can consume it by heaps if you like. There is no objection whatsoever for your consuming gelatin, because gelatin is not a live tissue. Haram and halal have their own areas. They belong to the area of life or death. So anything which is considered to be haram, if it has gone through a fundamental change in its character and its chemistry, then it is no longer the same thing which is originally forbidden. The example of this can be observed daily from beautiful fruits and vegetables growing out of dunghills. What is dung? It's forbidden and it's filthy. But when it undergoes a transformation and chemically a new thing is born, then the nature of the dunghill does not make it forbidden, because it's a new creation. The same is the case of gelatin. Gelatin, as it passes through the process of extreme heat and other pressures, it is no longer a live tissue. It becomes a transformed chemical, and chemicals are not forbidden. So anybody who may have entertained some hesitation can eat as much jelly as he likes. Please.
Question from Mr. Richard Norton from the School of Law, Kingston University.
Yes, please.
Will Your Holiness please clarify what is meant when the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, is described as the last of the prophets? Does it mean that he is the last in time? There can be no prophets after him? Or does it mean that he is the norm and standard by which later revelations might be judged?
If I give a short answer but satisfactory at the same time, I will remind you of two things. Number one, the Prophet of God, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who himself claimed to be the last prophet, also predicted the advent of a new prophet, Jesus Christ. Now, is that contradiction? Most certainly not. It shows, with the help of another hadith, that until the time of the appearance of Jesus, there will be no prophet born between the time of Muhammad ﷺ and the time of Jesus. There is a very clear prediction. La Nabiya Baini wa Bainahu. There will be no prophet, he said, between me and the advent of Jesus. So the word, the meaning of last is settled once and forever, because he was a better custodian of his qualities than the mullahs can ever be. So what he predicted was that in between the period no prophet will come, but when Jesus comes he would still be a prophet. So it solves the issue of last altogether. The second point to be noted is that Jesus is accepted by the mullahs to be a prophet of God after the advent of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, but they say because it will be the old Jesus who would be brought back from past, so he would not violate the quality of Prophet Muhammad being last. This is a very involved and unacceptable argument. If Jesus is brought back from the past periods only to bypass the issue of Rasulullah being last, then this is not a divine act of wisdom. In fact, it is very stupid to declare Rasulullah to be last, while Allah knew all the time that a time would come when people of his ummah would need a prophet. So according to the mullahs, to resolve this problem, God decided that all right, I'll keep a prophet alive from the past ages. And he'll be dispatched to somewhere in space, waiting for his return. When the time comes that the ummah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam requires a prophet, then he'll be brought back. Now this is absurdity upon absurdity. First of all, the Prophet they say will be brought back in person is declared by the Holy Quran to be categorically dead. No verses more than dealing with this subject in case of Jesus can be found in dealing with other prophets and their deaths. His death is so much emphasized and so repeatedly emphasized that these verses leave no doubt for us to entertain the view that Jesus of the past is dead. So if he is dead, how can he come back? That is the point. So this shows that the prophet who is promised is someone in his name, is someone in his character, someone in his time. And that is exactly the claim of Hazrat Mirza Sahib, that he is not personally the same Jesus who appeared 2000 years ago or so. He is a spiritual manifestation of the same Jesus, and because he shares some qualities of old Jesus, so he is named the promised Messiah. This is the case of the Jamaat Ahmadiyya with relation to the word last. Right? Next, please.
Do we have time to proceed as well? Because there's several more questions and...
Of course.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Right. Question from Mr. Muhammad Akram from Birmingham. A question about divorce. Some Muslim scholars believe that women cannot seek divorce from their husbands. Others believe contrary to it. What is the truth?
They're wrong. Women can seek divorce from their husbands. In fact, divorce is made easier for women in Islam than it is made for men. At the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and remember, we must learn our Islam from him, not from the mullahs of today. A woman appeared to the Holy Prophet ﷺ and said, "O Prophet of Allah, I seek divorce from my husband." The Prophet turned to her, peace and blessings upon him, and said, "What is wrong with that person?" She said, "Nothing." He said, "Does he treat you ill?" He said, "Certainly not." "What is the reason? Why do you seek divorce?" She said, "There is no reason, but having tried my best, my heart cannot be set upon him. I have not been able to begin to love him. And what is the purpose of marriage if I can't love him?" The Holy Prophet said, "Yes, you have a right case for divorce." And she declared her divorce valid immediately. Now this is how women were granted the right to take divorce at the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Now because the mullahs do not want to give divorce to their wives despite their cruelties and the horrors they commit to them, they have made a new edict that men can divorce but women cannot seek divorce. It's absolutely false. Right? I hope it does not apply to you in person. Please.
Question from Ms. Teresa, who is a Spanish student. She's also staying in Wimbledon. How do I decide or know which religion I should take?
Right?
How should I decide or know which religion should I take or
The
follow?
best answer is accept Ahmadiyya version of Islam. This is the best religion which will satisfy your mind and heart equally well. Because we have a rational understanding of religion. And you are a rational person. So this understanding of religion, as presented by Ahmadiyya Jamaat, should satisfy you. So from that point of view, study Ahmadiyya some more and pray to Allah to enable you to be guided to the right path. If you pray with full submission to God's will, I'm quite sure that He will lead you on to us, inshallah.
This is a second question from Dr. Boz Aida.
Who's the person?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. When there is conflict in a country or conflict between neighboring countries, should there be outside interference, or should the people involved be left on their own even if it meant them exterminating themselves?
You see, this is a question which cannot be controlled by any outside factors or inside factors, because there are very powerful governments which are involved, and they will not listen to my advice or the advice of any person who is directly involved. This is the global policy, and they do not want to see any change in the geography of a country which they have approved. They pose as the masters of the universe. According to an understanding between the powerful nations, if they decide the geography of a country has to be changed, they will permit it to happen. No problems. But if they decide not, then trouble will start, and whatever may happen, the people within or outside such countries who help them in their attempt to achieve a revolution will definitely be frustrated. They can't achieve anything except for bloodshed. So one should accept the reality of the supremacy of advanced nations. It's not submitting their will to theirs of volition. It is submitting your will to theirs because it's unavoidable. Understand? So people in every country should be sensible enough to judge the situation from this perspective. And they will not wastefully attempt to bring about changes unless they are approved by the superpowers.
Question again from the ladies, from Iram Chaudhary from Greenford.
Iram Chaudhary. Yes?
Could Hazur please explain why Islam discourages men from wearing gold? And are there any scientific findings?
You see, gold is forbidden to men for many reasons. Gold is understood to mean a sign or means of decoration which men do not require. Let women be decorated with gold and let men be decorated with steel. These are the different roles they perform in the life. So as such, the Holy Quran, and in the light of the Quranic teaching, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ forbade men not only to wear gold, but also to wear silk, which is also a sign of ladylike character. Ladies like to be dressed in silk and look soft and beautiful. If men do the same, they will begin to lose some of their manly qualities. So I've seen many such people who wear gold and who wear silk, and they are more like ninnies than men. So that is the main reason why it is forbidden.
This is the last question, again from Mr. Paul Posova from Crystal Palace. What are the main differences between Islam and Christianity? Why should I accept Islam?
You see, the main difference between the Christianity and Islam, if you study the difference at the sources, is not much at all. Fundamentally, it is the same. According to the Holy Quran, all religions, not only Christianity, were fundamentally in agreement with all the other religions when the revelation was made for the first time. But with the passage of time, man began to interpolate and interfere with the teachings of their original religions. Now, why must you change your faith from Christianity now is because you are not following Christ, you are following St. Paul. St. Paul has no right to dictate religion to the people. It was Jesus Christ who had the right to dictate divine religion to people. And that is why his brother James, who was appointed by him to deputize him after he had migrated, stuck fast to the teaching of Torah and to the teachings of Jesus Christ, that Torah must also be followed, not only in letter but also in spirit. This teaching was completely changed by St. Paul. And any honest scholar of today would support this contention. So why must you follow St. Paul when he was not appointed by God, nor was he appointed by Jesus Christ? He was a self-styled reformer whose understanding of religion was absolutely false on many counts. So it's no time for me to analyze the whole case. Only the other day, during my meet session with MD research scholars, I had pointed out to them to write a thesis on this aspect of St. Paul's attempt to destroy Christianity. And we have enough evidence from his own books to prove that he was neither a Christian nor a Jew nor anyone to be followed. He was a self-styled reformer who wanted only self-aggrandizement. And his teaching was most, if not obnoxious, self-contradictory. So if no other reason is needed by you to change your present stamp of Christianity, this is enough reason. Secondly, study the teachings of your inherited Christianity and compare it with the Islamic teaching, and by a detailed study and comparison, I'm quite sure, inshallah, you'll be led to Islam.